came back with a bang. Window down, yelling out money, anything. Ayy, ooh, got the foot on the gas. Pedal to the metal when I'm get to the bag. Ayy, got the foot on the gas. Pedal to the metal when the lane moving fast. Ayy, ayy, let them all cross. If they hate, then let them hate and make a bigger boss. Ayy.
This episode is brought to you by SPI Logistics, the premier freight agent logistics firm in North America. For over 40 years, SPI has been diligently building the most successful freight agent network to provide first-class relationships for our shippers, receivers, and carrier partners. We are more than another transportation network. We are a dedicated team of professionals united by one singular purpose, and that is to expedite our agents' success. All of our agents are set up for success on day one, as they are provided with a full suite of support staff that is ready to assist them with everything from after-hours emergencies to financial and administrative needs on a no-fee basis. This way, you can focus on continuing to grow your business. There is no financial risk to start, and you have the ability to earn up to 75% in commissions. If you are looking to take control of your financial future and build your business with the backing of one of the most successful logistics firms in North America, visit www.spi3pl.com to learn more. Do me a favor and let them know that the Freight Coach sent you. Hey guys, before we jump into the episode, I wanted to let you know it is brought to you by the NMFTA. Let me ask you a question. Do you ship LTL freight? Then listen up, because the NMFC changes went live on July 19th, and they're the biggest updates in the history of freight classification. Now more than ever, accuracy matters. That's why carriers, shippers, and brokers alike are turning to Class IT Plus, the NMFTA's new digital platform for real-time NMFC data. Stop guessing, start classifying smarter, and quote freight with confidence. It's time to get your ship together because the NMFC changes are already here. Learn more at nmfcchanges.com and get started with Class IT Plus at classitplus.com. Just do me a favor and let them know that the Freight Coach sent you. What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Podcast, the top podcast in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines. But most importantly, you guys, provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I say that before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak with transportation professionals, because at the end of the day, you guys, I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve. So you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. Everybody, we are, this is a pre-Thanksgiving show here, so we are recording this one, and that's just because, you know, everybody wants to be in front of their families around the holidays and everything, and I am joined today by my friend Keith Peterson with the NMFTA, and we're going to talk about something that, you know, I think is way, it's past due, right, of like where the industry needs to be compared to like where it actually is. And especially with everything being as digitized as it is out there, we need to all be speaking the exact same language out there. So Keith is spearheading the Digital Standards Council out there and really building that all up. So Keith, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today.
Hey, it's a lot of fun for me to be here. So, yeah, I'm excited to talk about this with you guys and kind of get the word out about what we're trying to do.
I look at it with where things are, you know, as somebody who's out there prospecting shippers all the time and talking to them. And it is amazing how every company kind of says a different, like we're all speaking the same language, but we're also speaking foreign languages at the same time, especially from a digital perspective that's out there. And, you know, I know that's one thing of like you guys are really trying to get ahead of here and really get integrated is like, why are companies labeling a truckload different and an LTL different and a partial, and it's all different terminology out there. And so it's like, was it just kind of like a lot of you, like, how did this come about? Was it one of those things, Keith, where everybody's like, hey, there's too much going on out here. We need to simplify and streamline all of the digitization that's happening inside of transportation?
So, I mean, it really came about because especially this all started with LTL. It really did here. And LTL is so dependent on bill ladings. And, will we ever get rid of paper bill ladings? Yes, we will. I believe someday here.
Yeah.
So, but it really came about from trying to standardize how this information gets transmitted, or, gets consumed by the industry here, and trying to eliminate mistakes and, and the inefficiencies that come from working with paper bill ladings here. So that if we could just get this information across here and digitally through API, that load can start right there from that e-bill lading, and you've got good information that doesn't get mixed up or anything like that, or even the old fat fingering of a number or something like that. And it just really makes it a much more efficient process all the way throughout the shipment here. Yeah,
I mean,
and it's built from there. Sorry, Chris, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, I mean, speaking of APIs, like, what is the biggest disconnect you see between how APIs should work and like what's actually happening on the dock level, in terminals, and like in multiple TMS platforms out there?
Yeah, so I mean, so APIs work great. Let me just start there, right? But what we're trying to do is standardize how these APIs should work, meaning what information should you expect to be coming across, and what are the terms that should be coming across as well here, because TMSs, different carriers, 3PLs. E-bill lading is not a new thing. It has been out there for a while. We're just trying to standardize in order to make the implementation of these APIs that much easier. So that if everybody's on the same standard, there's not this long drawn out professional services engagement that can really kind of come about from a bunch of different APIs, and terms that are out there. So trying to match up terms. One TMS may have a certain API, whereas another carrier has a totally different API. And how do we match those up together? We're trying to come up with one standard so that, hey, do you go by the standard? Yes. Okay, well, that's going to make it that much easier to implement here. So, and make that connection.
If every company out there has, because I know a lot of companies who build their own API connection out there, and they do a lot of that, is that one of those things where they could, and again, this is coming from somebody who has very limited tech experience, but like, is this something now where they could patch in the API standard that you guys have out there into their existing API? Is that something that could be done, or would they have to switch over entirely?
So it's a mixed process, right?
Okay.
I mean, these APIs are really, these standards are built with the industry, right? So it's not Keith Peterson over here cranking out some code. Believe
Yeah.
me, you would not want to see that at all, Chris. It's built with the industry. And in these workshops that we build, we have carrier representatives, we have 3PL representatives. We even try to work to get shipper representatives or TMS representatives on there as well. So it's really going to be, they're going to look very familiar to the TMSs, shippers that may have built them before, 3PLs. They're going to look very familiar. It is going to be an effort to put this standard in place here, but a lot of that work has been done here. On the LTL side, many of the large carriers have already put the e-bill lading standard into place. People like C.H. Robinson have been very open about starting to use it as well here. So, it's going to look very similar, but there will be some work to put that standard into place here, definitely. So,
Do you think, like I look at it, tendering freight and getting that all on the same page is one side of the equation, but I'm a firm believer, Keith, if you can't bill a customer properly, you will find yourself out of business faster than if you fail on a shipment for them. Speaking of billing surprises, and then primarily on the LTL, like that's one of the things that I always had a problem with is it's like, wait, you told me it was going to be $100. Now, what are all of these additional fees that are coming on to that? So it's like with those charges, and then if they do like API billing and everything, do you think we can get this streamlined to where they're like, there is no more back and forth on it from a billing perspective.
You know, our hope, at least on the LTL side here, is that, we can keep the shipper updated on any changes to the bill, meaning, hey, we got there and maybe there's an accessorial that we didn't know about leading up to it, or of course a reclassification through the process of dimensioning the freight and weighing the freight here. So, as a result, we also have released a preliminary freight charges, right? So, yes, there's a rate to begin with, but as changes happen to that rate here, we also have the preliminary freight charge standard as well, so that, hey, here's an update to that rate. That way the shipper knows ahead of time, even pre getting the invoice, so that they can update their own system and make that process that much easier instead of having a dispute down the road here. Let's start it early here instead of waiting until the actual invoice comes in. Trying to eliminate the surprises, Chris.
Yeah.
Here. So,
and
yeah.
Do you think that do you think having an API billing in here, Keith, do you think that this will give more real-time like insight into any potential changes that could be happening with like a reclass fee or reweigh fee? Because I feel like ultimately, and again, and that was kind of like with my earlier question about how like there's the warehouse team, the guys who are loading the trucks, and the office and all of that. There's a lot of different moving parts that are out here. And it's like, I look at it where it's like, is this going to give like real-time rate approval that comes down where it's like, hey, this is saying that it needs to be reclassed at this. Do you approve it? And like via API, it's going to make that a lot faster. And again, it's going to keep it a lot more clean as well, I would ultimately think, right?
So, Chris, you're basically stating exactly what we're going for here.
Love it.
Right?
Let's go.
Especially with preliminary freight charges, right? Yeah, it is to eliminate that surprise and make the process of actual final invoice payment that much more seamless here. A lot of times what I hear is, hey, I got this invoice, it is this much off. I didn't know there was this addition to it, a reclassification, whatever it may be. Now, okay, I got that, really once it went over the dock or even at pickup, it was supposed to be 2 pallets. Instead it's 3 maybe, right? And that would trigger a preliminary freight charge, really. So, okay, it got updated. Let's send it across to the shipper, whoever the bill to is. Hey, there's a change in this, just FYI. Now we've eliminated that surprise at the end when the final invoice comes in. They match up. Now we can get payment off that much quicker.
Yeah. No, I mean, because I look at it it's like we talk about collaboration a lot, right? Like we talk about partnerships a lot, but it seems like up until a certain point for some of the transactions, right? And I'm not trying to say like in everybody's statement there, but I look at it is there's a lot of push for collaboration. There's a lot of talk about partnerships, relationships, every ship that you see out there, but it's like there's certain areas that people kind of like get squirmish about talking. And then billing is one of those situations that it's seemingly somebody's always afraid to have that tough conversation out there. But like when it comes down to it now, like speaking of collaboration, and everybody's got their own agenda, right? Like everybody's here to make money. Everybody's here to do that. But like, how do you keep this all aligned as opposed to potentially creating more animosity between carriers, brokers, shippers, tech companies, stuff like that?
I think you keep it aligned by, the transparency of digitally sharing this data as it becomes available within the system here. So, the e-bill lading is really driven by carriers, right? It's being able to get that information in. But then as we look down the line, now it becomes more shipper focused, right? So preliminary freight charges, in-transit updates, documentation, all those type of things that we have in our, that we're working on here currently, that all becomes a lot more either 3PL or shipper focused, right? How are we getting updates out to shippers, 3PLs, however it may be here, and by having that data available through API so that they can get it right away, get it consumed within their system, that really eliminates a lot. It doesn't do 100%, but nothing ever does, right? You almost kind of try to do the 90-10 or the 80-20 rule. How do you hit those main things? And that's where and I keep saying eliminate those surprises with preliminary freight charges. Or even if it does go beyond that, maybe there is a dispute. Well, let's get the documents over to them quickly and easily here, that are needed in that dispute here. It's really about sharing that information and making it as seamless as possible in order to make it as efficient as possible as well here.
Yeah, I just look at it because like there's so much technology that's out there, Keith, and it's one of those things where I just had a shipper on the show last week, and he was like legitimately he was talking. He said our biggest pain point is we don't know where our freight is more times than not. And you think about that, right? Everybody talks about real-time visibility, and that's a thing. This guy is like an enterprise. He's like an enterprise of enterprise shippers. He has a lot of freight. They're having that issue. And he said, number two, we can't get PODs. We can't get proofs of delivery. He's like, that's our second biggest headache out there, right? So it's like, I look at it from a shipper of that magnitude. If they're having issues like that, imagine what the small to mid-sized market is going through out there. How big of a value add would something like this bring to their operations? Because, when you go a little bit further down, I'm not saying anybody likes to lose money or anything like that, but like the larger companies, they're in a lot better financial position out there where they can take a couple of losses or delayed payments from their vendors or whatever if there's a delay on paperwork. But like some of the small to mid-sized market, they need that revenue from that truckload to pay their P&L for the month, right? Like to cover their overhead for the month. So it's like, I look at stuff like this is going to expedite it in so many different areas. And I think like with the API connectivity that you're talking about here, I think it's as time progresses, if it's going to get more and more cost competitive out there to process a lot of this stuff via API and run a lot of that, do the integrations and such. Cause I know that's a fee out there for some people. Some, might be third-party providers where they charge an integration fee, and there's, stuff that comes along with it. But I look at it is for this to reach the masses, I think that's going to clean up a lot of the behaviors and a lot of the issues that people have operating inside of this industry.
You kind of hit it on the head there. So one thing about the larger carriers, the larger 3PLs, larger shippers, is that they have the IT department, that could possibly handle APIs. But one thing that kind of gets lost when we talk about standardization is, number one, it's open source. It's going to be out there for anybody to go and use. So what that does is that opens up the market as well. So, is there somebody that can provide, like a POD using the standards, right? Hey, I'm using the standards. Here's a POD app, right, that could get you updates, right? Or even, act as a third party to bring across, in-transit updates, for instance, or even those preliminary freight charges, and make it available for those smaller to mid-size, that market there, where maybe they don't have the IT staff to do it, or they're not looking at a TMS that has it maybe. But there's also apps out there that can help them with this and put it into a digitalized form using the standards to get it across to where it needs to go here. So it's beyond just adoption through carriers, through 3PLs. Is how else can be used in order to fully digitalize this process. It's a big word there.
Yeah,
sorry.
no, it's all good, man. I also look at it too, because like I saw that the scheduling standards is now under your guys' umbrella. And I look at that, like that's a whole other thing too, right? To be able to get that going and digitize the appointment setting process. Is this something, do you think that this is finally going to end email and like Excel scheduling of appointments out there and stuff like that? Or is that going to be a ways down the road, do you think?
So that's exactly what the Scheduling Standards Consortium was looking to do, right? And that's really interesting. There's a consortium that saw what we were doing with LTL, and scheduling standards is really more truckload based. So people like Uber Freight are on it, JB Hunt, and really look, Convoy was on it here. And they created a standard as well, but they saw what we were doing at LTL, which was more the entire logistics process. We had really a roadmap there, and they said, "Hey, we want to do that as well here." So, they came to us here basically and said, "We want to do it only on the truckload side."
Yeah.
So we're using that. We started that truckload council a year ago, and they're making huge strides. They really are here. So, and now they've got their own roadmap. And we're trying to work together with LTL and truckload groups to try to find those commonalities, maybe not just with APIs, but hey, what are the common terms? Can we agree on some common terms here, or even reason codes as well? Is there a way we can do that that is common so that it can be reused over and over again and not rebuilt each time an API has to be built here? So it's been really interesting, and yeah, the scheduling standards. That's really exciting. Being able to reach out and set those appointments just by using that instead of by email, right? By Excel spreadsheet, by phone call, and even on the LTL side, we have pickup requests and pickup requests where it's more on the pickup side as well here, where hey, how do we set these appointments to make these pickups? That's a huge gain in efficiencies there that comes about from this here. So, yeah.
I was gonna say, what do you think the real blocker is out there, Keith? Is it tech? Is it capability? Is it budget? Is it just like the most famous statement in transportation? This is the way we've always done things. Like, do you think like what's slowing this industry down the most? Do you think?
With any change, it's going to take some time here. So, and it's got to be worked into the development cycles when it comes to, carriers, when it comes to 3PLs, when it comes to shippers. And so, as we work through this here, it's a matter of getting it into those cycles here. And we're seeing more and more where it becomes more and more. Worldwide Express adopted it this year. TQL has adopted it as well here. And they're starting to work down that roadmap of what's available out there already. And there's several carriers doing that as well. Estes is, really excited about our next API update in transit, right? That it's just got to be worked into these roadmaps that they have and work it into their budget so that they can start adopting this and make it available for their customers, for the 3PLs that they work with, and get them using it as well. So I probably overuse this a little bit here, but it feels like right now and this is the way it always is with adoption, is we're pushing that stone up a hill, but eventually we're going to get to that crest and it's going to start rolling on its own, where it's going to get really exciting. And I always kind of try to state as well as I did earlier, is these are open source. So it's also available for other people that may have an idea. Hey, I think I can build an app around this, or I think I can help with this piece here and possibly, go out there and sell it to the market here. So, yeah.
How do we like from the smaller to regional carriers and, the small to mid-sized brokers that are out there, they might not have a big IT team or a big IT budget. How do you recommend they stay in the mix on this and like not get left behind and look at it as like only the big logos are going to do stuff like that?
Generally, if you start talking to TMSs and working with TMSs, a good question to ask is, hey, are you using the standards set, by the DSDC? And start asking for that as well here. So, I'm assuming, either through partners or you're using a TMS, or even the shippers, if they're looking at a TMS here as well. ask, hey, do you use the standards that are set by DSDC here?
Mhm.
And that's a great way to get started. Yeah, of course, building an API, if you don't have your own system, is just, there's no reason to do that here. So
Yeah.
start looking around. Hey, what TMSs use this here, right? And start asking those questions because it'll really open up things for you as well.
So I guess for any company that's like sitting on the sideline right now, do you think that they're gonna eventually hit we should have done this sooner after they make the switch, or is it going to be one of those we should have done this sooner and now we're too far behind? Do you think like what's that realization point do you think is going to be?
I see it as more of the, hey, you know what, this probably should have been done sooner.
Mhm.
But I don't want to say that they'd be left, too far behind by any means here. So we're working hard to get more and more adoption to it. And again, once we hit that critical mass, it's going to really take off here. And I think we're already getting there here as well. So when you have somebody like a CH Robinson, and Old Dominion Freight Lines, a JB Hunt using these standards here, it's really hard to ignore at that point. And it's gonna get there and it's gonna start taking it off, but making it easier for the industry as a whole to digitize the entire process here is really what it's about. So, I think a lot of people may, especially once they start using it, they may say, hey, I really wish I would have,
Yeah.
done something like this sooner. But it's not about being left behind. All right. You'll never hear me say that at all here.
No, absolutely. So what was that chart you were talking about earlier? You wanted to share
Oh,
your
sure.
screen and get that up.
Yeah. So I think what's interesting and is for people to really kind of see what it is that we're working on here as well here. So, and this is just a chart that we use between the two councils to look at what our progress is when it comes to these roadmaps here. So on top, we have the LTL Council. And of course, the e-bill laning is out. Pickup requests and visibility is out as well. We've got some things we'd like to update on it. So preliminary freight charges was released this year. Next is in transit. Then we're going into invoice and rate disputes, rate quoting, and even cargo claims. We're just getting started on document retrieval on this side here. So, we've got a workshop working on that here. And then on the truckload side, e-bill lading, actually, we're about to put both e-bill lading and invoice and documentation out for public review here through GitHub. So keep an eye on DSDC for any kind of updates on that. And then we also have workshops working on book and tender, in-transit visibility, quote, and we want to get those out for public review as well. And that puts it out there for the public to look at this code, right? This YAML, this API standard, and give us feedback on it as well. Because again, this is open source, right? We want to make sure it's useful for the industry. And then we track the SSC, the appointment scheduling as well on the truckload side. Of course, that's a release standard already here.
Mhm.
So this is what we look at on a monthly basis when we have these board meetings. But believe me, there's a lot more meetings as well between workshops where we come together and discuss these standards, what needs to be in them, and build the requirements and eventually the YAML or the coding on it as well here. So, I always think I wanted to point out as well that upcoming in Manifest in February
Yeah.
here, we've got two things going on. On Monday, the February 9th, we've actually got a panel that's going to be headed up by CIOs. And even a shipper to give their opinion on why these are valuable. So that's on the 9th. And then on the 10th, Tuesday the 10th, and yes, I'll admit it's going to be a little early in the morning for Vegas, but we're actually going to have our DSDC membership meeting. But I say membership, it's really open for anybody that may be interested in what we're doing to come in. And it's reviewing with everybody that is able to be there where we're at, what's going on with LTL, what's going on with truckload, and even going to be talking a little bit more about why this is so valuable, especially when it comes to hey, this has been implemented and these are the gains we've seen from it here. So we're really excited about doing that with Manifest here. But let me stop. I got ahead of myself a little bit, Chris. Any questions you have around this here? And
No, yeah, I guess my question was is seeing this and seeing the progress that you guys already have. And if we're looking at this here, if the blue is all the way through, that means it's live and running, right?
yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's like if we're looking at this, like what's one process today in trucking that you think is going to look completely different in the next maybe 2 to 5 years, just based on what you guys are doing here? And like it's a very open-ended question because I see a lot of stuff that you guys are working on here from a digitization standpoint. So you could just say everything on this list in front of us here.
No, I mean, I'll point out a couple of things here because, in transit is something that's out there, right? I know that some people are saying they don't have view of their freight and that stuff. So on the LTL side, I think it could really help out here.
Yeah.
On the truckload side, in transit updates or that visibility, that's been around for a long time, but you're basically, hey, where's my trailer, right? Not necessarily where's my pallet, right? So it's a little bit different on those. But one thing, as we've talked on the different workshops here, is, I see something like providing documentation. Those images of documents here. I think could be changing in the next few years here, right? Because ideas come up in this, like what if that was more of a subscription service rather than the shipper reaching out to the carrier? What if the carrier is just sending documents for that certain load as soon as it becomes available here? Or even working through cargo claims. How do we work that through API? So, hey, here's a claim. Okay, I need documentation, and just being able to do that very quickly back and forth to get to the end of it, to get to the end of that dispute as well here, that much quicker rather than having to rely on email or somebody being gone for Thanksgiving, right? And so that holds that cargo claim up for a week. So there are things like that that are out there that I think are going to become really exciting in the next few years here.
So I guess kind of as we're wrapping up here on this one, Keith, how do you think, from because I look at it, it not saying that this is a fad by any stretch of the imagination out there, but I think with technology, it's like what's gonna stick, long term out there. And like I'm a massive proponent of this because like I look at the overarching industry right now and it's extremely digital and it's going to continue to get more and more digital out there, but inevitably transportation is pretty antiquated in a lot of areas of the industry as well. How do you tell those individuals like this isn't going to die, you guys? Like this is going to be a thing and it's going to be adopted a lot faster than I think a lot of people want to even really openly admit.
Right. So, typically I always kind of start with, hey, it used to be you would only get load information from a phone call, right? And then EDI came around, and that was exciting. Now we're putting loads in maybe once a day. Hey, these are my loads for the day from a customer. They would EDI into you, and you'd have those loads available. Now you're not keying them in one by one, right? You're still taking a lot of those phone calls and keying those in. Now with API, right? The thing with EDI, and I love EDI, is that it can be expensive. And even to configure it and set it up with your customers, I was just talking to a carrier today and said they have 3 people dedicated just to do that basically and keep the EDI running, right? API is kind of, it's leaps and bounds beyond that. It's flexible, so it can be changed easily. You can set it up so you get real-time updates now, right? So especially when it comes to in transit. And I think what's important, and of course you can't talk about digitalization or technology without mentioning AI, really. And so it is really the pathway forward to AI when it comes to this. A lot of these things that we're starting to see out there within the industry, like taking from emails, and AI taking from emails and building a bill of lading, right? Well, it's really digitalizing it and putting it into, for instance, a standard like ours here, in order to get it into the system and get it throughout the process here. So, it's the path forward, and it's flexible. It's easy to change once you're going on it, and it's really exciting going forward here.
No, I agree. And I think that the faster people adopt a lot of this stuff, the better they're going to be long term, because I'm just at a point where I see there's three camps of companies that are in today's current society in the next probably 3 to 5 years. The ones who are going to over automate everything, the ones who are going to automate absolutely nothing. I think those ones are going to be left behind and possibly see the end of their days. I don't advocate for that to happen, but I just think that that's where the reality is of where a lot of things are. Then there's going to be the people who are balancing out like the right amount of automation in tech and the right amount of that human element that comes in, because I feel like at the end of the day, that relationship is still going to be done between human to humans. As long as there's guys like us out there, Keith, that are still in this transaction, I feel like that human element is still going to be a major factor. And I just hope more people see this as the investment as it is into the growth of their company, as opposed, it's not an expense, right? Like this is going to free up so much more of your time so you can work on more revenue producing tasks than I think a lot of people realize, because we get so bogged down into our day to day, and then we find comfort in that bog, and it's just like, it's a lot easier to stay there.
Right. Exactly. It is the path forward here. Right. Yeah. And I think we just, and it's going to uncover things that we probably aren't even thinking about right now, Chris, as well here. So,
Yeah.
and make it possible here. So I'm excited for what it's going to be going forward.
No, I love it. Keith, thank you so much for your time. That is
Thank
going to be
you.
it, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to put all of Keith's contact information and the NMFTA out there, you guys, if you want to get in contact with them, because you need to get ahead of this, you guys. They're going to work with you to get this all up and running. But that is going to be it, everybody. Have a happy and safe Thanksgiving. We will be back the following Monday. We appreciate you guys. We love you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Came back with a bang, window down, yelling out money, anything. Ayy, ooh, got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when I'm get to the back. Ayy, got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when the lane